Find out who did it. Oh, it's that good. Oh, what's it called? The Good Life? The Good Life? Was it good?
I love the title.
Are you ready? Court is going to call 2021 CR 0667, State of Texas versus Jeremy Michael Tapia. Do I have parties announced for the record for the state?
Daniel Escobar for the state of Texas.
Defense?
Tim Gonzalez for defense.
Can I have those stamp? And are you Mr. Tapia?
Yes, Your Honor.
All the way to the middle, sir.
I'm going to show you what's entitled Motion to Enter Adjudication of Guilty and Revoke Community Supervision. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it?
To my understanding, yes, Your Honor.
Here's the thing, you need to speak up.
To my understanding, yes, I understood it.
Did you understand it? And did you review it with your attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you the same Jeremy Michael Tapia who was placed on deferred adjudication in 2021 CR 0667 for the offense of possession of controlled substance penalty group 1 less than 1 gram on June 11, 2021 for a term of 2 years? Is that you?
Yes,
All right, state.
Violated condition number 9B on or about the 3rd day of May 2023 in Bexar County, Texas. The defendant, Jeremy Michael Tapia, failed to report an arrest to the supervision officer within 48 hours in violation of condition number 9B.
How do you plead to that? True or not true?
true.
Your Honor, state waives all the violations.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
Did you understand by pleading true to violation of condition 9B, the court can find it true, grant the motion, find you guilty, sentence you up to 2 years in the state jail facility and up to a $10,000 fine?
Yes, Your Honor.
Knowing that, do you still wish to plead true to condition
9B.
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
All right, the court will find violation of condition number 9B true. Is there a proposed agreement?
There is, Your Honor, it's to terminate the case unsatisfactorily.
All right, what I can tell you both is I'm not inclined to terminate unsatisfactorily. What has he done?
He has done classes, Your Honor. He's done a parenting class. Judge, he's had a good job since September of last year. He's working for FedEx. He is taking care of his 3-year-old autistic daughter that he is primary caregiver for. And he does have some family support to assist him with that. And so he is trying, Judge. He's trying, he's working, he's caring for his daughter. He's got a schedule that he sets around her school hours. And I know I told the court this morning, unfortunately, we had a misunderstanding on the date. And so, you know, he was having to make arrangements for her today to get here. And so he is making an effort, Judge. And so we are respectfully asking that the court approve the agreement. The other charges that were on there were dismissed. They had to do with a family member. And so those went away. Other than that, Judge, you know, he's doing well.
Probation?
Your Honor, it was probation's recommendation to term his case unsat. His probation expired June 10th of 2023. It was kept open due to the MTR and in the case that was dismissed. He has finished his community service hours. His case is paid in full. He was the first time that he tried to go through the outpatient program, he was discharged unsuccessfully. So we put him in the program again. And at the time of this, it states that he was enrolled, but I'm looking through his file now and it says that it was turned unsat
So you want to raise your right hand for me, please? You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you can lower your hand, state your name for the record.
Jeremy Tapia.
All right, did you complete outpatient treatment
Yes, Your Honor.
successfully?
Oh, yes, she told me that I would be successful because I missed the class even though I got arrested that day. But when I got out, I continued going to the classes still, even though.
All right. And so your drug test today, what is it going to be positive for?
Your Honor, I don't want to be a liar, so it could be, anything because I didn't realize I was still on probation after it's been so long. And I did get the case dismissed, the MTR, and you said, we'll let you know when
So you
hear
used
for another
because-
court date.
So you used because you didn't think you were going to be on probation?
No, I just didn't think I was on probation. I just don't want to be a liar and come
So-
up with something that I don't know.
So what could you possibly be positive for?
It could be Xanax, it could be the pills that I take for my ADHD. But I don't have the prescription, it's an old prescription. It's not a recent, so I know that could be not a good thing.
All right. So anything other than Xanax?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, now's the time to tell the truth because at the end,
Marijuana, Adderall, all the prescriptions that I used to have, I
Right.
still have some. Cause I couldn't afford it right now, but I'm gonna get on the insurance with my job so I can still go see my therapist. Cause it started getting too expensive, and that's why I don't have a recent.
so you're telling the court the only thing you're going to be positive for, Adderall, Xanax.
I'm saying I don't know, and I don't wanna, I'm just telling you all the things that could be, and I don't
Okay,
want
what
it
else
to-
could it be other than Xanax and Adderall?
That's basically it, Your Honor. Oh, I did say my.
All right, because you're going to get tested today.
Yes, sure.
All right,
I'm sorry, I don't know if you heard him, but he did say marijuana.
okay. This is what I'm going to do. Probation. He's going to get extended. And you're going to get extended for 30 days. And on that day, well, let's do this. I'm finding 9B true. I'm going to ask that the warrant be called. We're going to come back here and I'm going to make my ruling in 30 days. And when you come back here, you better be prepared to give a clean UA. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
And probation, will that give you time to see if he actually completed the outpatient treatment? Because he's saying he has a certificate. Somebody gave him a certificate of completion.
You can provide us.
They were supposed to email it to us, but I do have. Shit. I don't recall. I know that I did finish, but I don't recall if I have the actual paper, but I could go up there. It's down the street from where I live, the class.
Okay. So we're going to get a reset for me to make a ruling in 30 days. We're going to get a UA today. Ms. Ferguson, what date to come back on?
I can have them come back on the 26th.
All right. So you're going to come back on February 26th
Yes.
and I'm going to make a ruling. Now, what ends up happening on that day is 100% in your purview, right?
Yes.
If you come in here clean, if you take care of your business, then I'm inclined to follow what agreement they've come up with. If you don't, I'm not saying I'm not going to follow the agreement, but they will tell me some things. You understand?
Yes.
Probation, is there anything else he needs to do in 30 days that he hasn't completed on his probation? All right, and you'll, on that day too, you'll need to provide documentation for any prescription medication that you're on. Provide proof that you completed the outpatient treatment. Come in here negative, but you're gonna get UA today. And Ms. Ferguson, can you give them a reset form?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Is there anything else?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, and then we just have Tony.
No, it's a question. You. Oh, is it the actual written one?
All right, this is the question. Oh, you probably want to.
Yeah.
And Norma, could you give me that paper that's on the printer?
Nope, they did not listen to the instructions.
All right, and
They
so,
want the testicle has really Charles.
so what I propose to send them back is they need a debate or specific. Yeah. Dispute. We're on the record. All right, we're on the record in 2023 CR 2677, State of Texas versus David Duenas. The jurors have presented the following question. Your Honor, may we have the testimonies of Christian Rodriguez and Charles Watterson for review? Have both parties had a chance to review the question?
Yes.
All right, the court proposes the following supplemental charge. Members of the jury, I have received your note. Under the law, I cannot read testimony back to you generally. You must have a dispute about the testimony that you are asking about, and you will need to specify exactly what you are in dispute about. If the jury specifies as to what they are in disagreement about with regard to the statement of any witness, then they may, upon application to the court, have read to them from the court reporter's notes just that part of such witness testimony of the particular point in dispute and no other. Is there any objection to that being sent back to the jurors, state, defense? All right.
Your Honor, she does not know the number to her family member. And she wants to use her phone. I told her that I will come check with everybody here first.
All right, so we're still on the record. Defense and state, do you have any objection to deputy being with the juror in the hallway for the juror to look at her phone to see what number needs to be called, and then the deputy will actually call the number and not the juror? Any objection, state?
No, Your Honor.
Defense? All right, we can do it that way.
I'm gonna get the phone from her and call for her.
Yes.
She's not gonna do the actual.
All right, thank you. And Norma, if we could find out where Mr. Jimenez is,
He
please.
said he's almost done, Judge.
All right, I'm being told that there's a verdict. I don't know what the verdict is. But there is to be no outburst whatsoever. So if there's an outburst, what's going to end up happening is people are going to be asked to leave the courtroom. All right. And I'm assuming the complainants will not be down, correct? Okay. If the verdict is guilty, what we'll do is I'll send them back to take a short break so that everybody can get the moving parts in place. And of course, if it's not guilty, we'll just take care of everything. Yes, that's fine. All right, are you ready to bring him in? Okay.
All right, for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the deputy has informed me that you all have reached a verdict. Is that correct? And is that a verdict in each count? And is that verdict unanimous in each count? All right, if you'll hand the verdict. Okay. I will staple it back. Thank you. All right, in regards to count one, it says, we, the jury, find the defendant, David Solomon Duenas, not guilty of the offense of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon as charged in count one of the indictment. With regards to count two, it states, we, the jury, find the defendant, David Solomon Duenas, guilty of the offense of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon as charged in count two of the indictment. You may be seated. Would anyone wish to have the jury polled? All right, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sing you to the back and then we'll come out for the second phase of the trial. All right. All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors. All right, is that door going to close?
No.
All right, please be seated, everyone. All right, so Mr. Duenas, I'm going to have the deputies place you in custody, but we are going to proceed with the second phase of the trial. All right, so they're just going to take him to the back briefly to probably put on the leg brace, and then we'll come out and do that. State, do you intend to call witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right, defense, are you calling witnesses?
Yes, Your
All right, is there going to be opening statements from either side?
No, Your Honor. Wait.
All right. All right, so as soon as they do that, and if you all already have your witnesses, just let the court know and we'll start.
Judge, may I inquire whether or not the complainants are available to testify?
I don't believe they're here, Your Honor, at all.
All right, do you want them to testify?
I haven't had that conversation with my client, but if they're under subpoena, I certainly am allowed to rely on the state subpoena.
I don't, they're not under subpoena.
Okay. All right, and I know there were certain witnesses that were excused.
And that's for the guilt and innocence, Your Honor. I do believe
Danessa was subject to recall. Christian was originally subject to recall, and then after we recalled him to the stand, I do not believe he was, I think he was released at that point, and I don't remember about Charles.
Okay. Could you check to see? I don't believe Ms. Duenas was excused, but I do think that the complainant and the other lay witness may have been excused. So she's going to check on that, and we're not on the record. Can you, which witness would you like to have back here? Or do you want to discuss it with your client?
I would like to discuss it, but I'm thinking potentially Christian and Vanessa.
All right. Yes, well, Danessa, I do believe that she was subject to recall. With regards to Christopher, I think he was excused. But is there any objection to them appearing by Zoom? Or are you going to object to that? All right, so we'll probably have a late night tonight. And they'll let you talk to your client, and you can let me know if you wish to have them back as witnesses. Okay. All right, Dinah, you ready? All right, court is calling 2023 CR 7389, State of Texas versus Michael Ugu. Hmm. Oh, thank you. Can I have parties announced for the record for the state?
Daniel Escobar from the state of Texas.
Tony Hernandez on behalf of Mr. Ugu.
Are you Mr. Ugu?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Counsel, have you received all the discovery? Did you review it with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
Court will find that the state is in compliance with discovery. Mr. Ugu, I'm showing you what's entitled application for deferred adjudication. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you sign it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Showing you what's entitled true bill of indictment. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it?
Yes, ma'am.
Counsel, do you waive the reading of the indictment?
Yes, Your Honor.
State, are you proceeding on the indictment as presented?
Oh, you're,
Count one and count two?
sorry, no, just count one, wait, count two.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
I'm going to show you what's entitled court admonishments and defendants waivers and affidavit of admonitions. Did you review that document with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you sign it in all the appropriate places?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand you're charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon? That's a second-degree felony. The range of punishment is anywhere from 2 to 20 years in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. Did you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you have a plea bargain agreement, the court does not have to follow your plea. If for any reason the court does not follow your plea and gives you more than you bargained for, the fact that you entered a plea will not be used against you and you will be allowed to withdraw your plea. Did you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney
Yes,
to
Your Honor.
cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call in the right to remain silent?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand by entering this plea, you were giving up those rights?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you intend to give up those rights and enter into a plea in this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand if the court were to grant your application for deferred adjudication, if for any reason your deferred adjudication were revoked, the court could find you guilty, sentence you up to 20 years in prison and up to a $10,000 fine?
Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel, has your client been able to provide you with any defenses?
He has been.
Do you believe he has a rational as well as a factual understanding of the charges against him?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you believe he's currently competent and was legally sane at the time of the offense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Has anyone threatened you, coerced you, or placed you in fear to get you to enter the plea?
No, Your Honor.
Has anyone promised you anything other than the plea?
No, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied with the way you've been represented?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes.
Court will find that defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived his right to jury trial. Showing you the plea bargain page. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it?
Yes, Your Honor.
According to the plea, state is proceeding on count one. Punishment is to be assessed at 6 years in the prison. The state is remaining silent on your application. There's to be restitution, if any, to Timothy Clay. Did you understand that to be the plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense?
It is, Your Honor.
State?
Yes, Judge.
Showing you the waiver of appeal paragraph. Did you review that paragraph with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you sign it in both places?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand by signing that you're waiving your right to appeal? The only items that can be appealed are written pretrial motions that have been filed, heard, and ruled upon by the court. Did you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel, have there been any such motions?
No, Your Honor.
Then to the offenses charged in count one, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
No contest.
State any evidence?
State offers states exhibit one in all counts.
We have no objections, Your Honor.
Showing you what's entitled waiver and consent to stipulation of testimony and stipulations. Did you review that document with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you sign it in all the appropriate places?
Yes, Your Honor.
Again, did you understand you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call in the right to remain silent?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right. Did you understand that today the state would be presenting evidence in the form of witnesses' statements and police reports, but most importantly, there will be no live testimony? Did you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Court will find that defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived and consented to stipulation of testimony and stipulations. Court will accept into evidence states exhibits one and attachments. The court has reviewed the same, and defense, because there was a DVD attached, I reviewed that before the documents were entered into evidence. Any objections to the court having done that?
No, Your Honor, would likely ask the court to do that at sentencing also.
Okay. All right. The court will find there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty. The court will defer finding of guilt as you've applied for deferred adjudication. And what date is this coming back on?
March 21st.
All right, we'll come back on March 21st. Is there a need for a TAP evaluation or no?
No.
All right, so it'll just be a PSI. I'll make my decision on your application based upon any evidence that's presented to me. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, is there anything else from either side?
Nothing's on the defense, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, you too.
More importantly, you need to sign it.
That's what she says.
Yes, we're ready.
All rise for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the second phase of the trial. State, do you have any opening statements?
No, Your Honor, state waives opening.
Defense, any opening statements? State, call your first witness.
At this time, we would offer into evidence all the evidence from the guilt and innocence phase, Judge.
All right, and defense, any witnesses?
Yes, Judge. Our first witness is Margaret Duenas.
All right. All right, you're still under oath. All right. Defense?
Ms. Duenas, can you reintroduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Margaret Duenas.
You're David's mother, correct?
Yes,
And Ms. Duenas, you understand the verdict that's been returned and what that means, correct?
yes, sir.
And you understand that it's now going to be the jury's task to determine what the appropriate punishment is.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to ask you some background questions about things that maybe we didn't talk about in the first phase of the trial. I want to start with, is David's father in jail?
Yes.
Tell me why we haven't seen him in court.
My husband is self-employed, and on November 16, I had a total knee repair surgery. And he was my caregiver for 8 weeks. And so he just went back to work on I want to say 11th January of this month. So that's why he's not here today.
Within the family, between yourself and your husband, have you had the opportunity to discuss how David got himself in this situation?
Yes, we have.
And have you shared your thoughts with him about what you agree with and what you disagree with in terms of his behaviors or how he manages his relationship with his ex-wife?
Yes, sir.
And has he taken to heart the things that you've told him or that you've shared with him?
Yes, he has. He put a plan together that I was very proud of him.
Tell us about that, Mr. Williams.
He looked into possibly getting into the service as his number one, Air Force. We do have a lot of military in our family. My dad worked for APHIS, so he worked a lot with the military. He retired. And then he said if that didn't work, that he had a second plan. His second plan was either to work with Bexar County, with the police, So he was looking forward to go a different route.
Now, Ms. Duenas, do you think your son understands that some of those options are no longer feasible as a convicted felon?
Yes, sir.
So does he and the family have plans, if the jury were to see fit, granting him probation to help sustain himself and the family?
Yes, sir.
How many children does David have?
Let's see, he's got 5 children.
And does he have child support obligations?
Yes, he has child support.
And was he, when he was, well, let's talk about before this happened, was he paying those child support obligations?
Yes, sir, he was.
And what was he doing for work in order to be able to do that?
He's a salesman for a dealership for Dodge.
Was he on good terms with the mothers of the other children?
Yes.
Is Vanessa the only one that seemed to have conflict?
Uh, uh, Sadly, yes.
Do you see David any differently as a result of having gone through this experience?
Yes, I have. He even took working. My husband, like I said, is self-employed, and my husband gave him an opportunity to make some extra money, not a whole lot, but something. And he did, like getting himself dirty, not sitting at a desk like he normally was used to. So he took that opportunity, and we could see that he was trying his best to do what he can to make extra money and to help his wife and provide an income.
Now, during the time that this case has been pending, which is now well in excess of a year, he was under the supervision of the court, correct?
Yes, sir.
What kinds of restrictions did he have to comply with?
He had a curfew. He had a monitor on his ankle. He was not allowed to only go to work and home and work. He had to be home at a certain time, and he can only leave the house between the hours that he told them that he would be leaving. If he did not comply, of course, there's a sensor that will go off and the police would be at our house. But thankfully, the police never had to come to our house or look for him or anything. He was punctual. He was there as he was supposed to be.
Now, the jurors already heard that David no longer has contact with his son, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that could very well continue.
Yes, sir.
Do you think your son is going to accept that and abide by that as long as the court tells him he has to?
Yes, it's been very hard, but he's done it for over a year, and I know he can, and I know he will, because he's got a family to take care of.
Tell the jury about his relationship with his son prior to this happening.
He's a little mini me. You see him, he looks identical to his dad. They dress alike. And he's very attached to his dad. He looks up to his dad. He thinks his dad is the best. I have had an opportunity to talk to him, and he could keep me on the phone over an hour. I also teach 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. That's my job at Head Start. I've been teaching in the San Antonio Independent School District going on 6 years in April. He attended that school. I was part of his teaching. And he would be excited all the time. Every time he saw me, he said, "Grandma, am I going to the house this weekend? Am I going to see my daddy?" I said, "We have to talk to Mom." So he always looked for his daddy.
How were you able to make that contact?
When you go into surgery, you start worrying and thinking, am I gonna come back out of this alive? I've had some bad experiences with surgery. So I didn't get to talk to Deani prior to my surgery, but he was on my mind a lot. So the day after Thanksgiving, picked up the phone and I called him. Even if it was just 5 minutes, I was very grateful and I respected Danessa for those 5 minutes. And I talked to him, and that's been the last time I've spoken to him.
So September of 2022 to January of 2024, that's the only contact anybody in your family's had with Yanni?
Yes, sir.
Now, how long did you know his mother?
I think we figured it out, right? Like 10 years. She was like, I think she was 16, 17, somewhere around about 10 years.
What was your relationship with her like?
Relationship with her was good. I love Danessa and I still love her. I mean, I don't hate her and I never will. I'm very disappointed with everything that happened, but she just wasn't just a daughter-in-law. I took her under my wing and I gave her her space. I respected her and she respected that of me, and we had a good relationship.
Based on your relationship with her and having known her since she was a teenager, it looks like we're not gonna hear from her anymore.
Right.
Do you think it's really her desire that your son be out of his son's life?
It's her desire to have my grandson out of my son's life.
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Sustained.
Does it surprise you that she would take that position?
Objection, relevance to whether or not someone is surprised.
Sustained.
Judge, as the court knows, we're in the guilt innocence phase of this trial, and the whole point of it is for the jury to have some information upon which to base a verdict, and I think that is clearly relevant to what we're doing here today.
All right, the objection will be sustained.
How many siblings does David have?
David has 5 siblings.
I'm assuming besides yourself and your husband, all of his siblings are supportive of whatever he needs to be successful?
Yes, sir.
Corporation?
Yes, sir.
He's not gonna own any more guns in his life. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
That's a definite, right?
Correct.
Because nobody else in your family has guns, is that right?
No, sir.
I'll pass it.
State.
Ma'am, I just have a couple quick questions for you. I know we had spoken in the previous phase of the trial. Were you aware of the fact that the protective order only prevents David from contact with Deani?
No, sir. Like I said, I've never seen anything official. I had no idea. I was not familiar with it.
And you love your son, ma'am?
I love Deani,
Your son?
my son. Yes, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
So, Ms. Duenas, as part of David's conditions of being on bond, he had certain restrictions from the court in addition to being on the monitor, correct?
Yes, sir.
He was not allowed to be in contact with Danessa, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Under any circumstance.
Yes, sir.
So he couldn't make arrangements directly himself to either talk to his son or to see him or anything.
Correct.
And was he also prevented from having people contact her on his behalf?
Yes, sir.
So when you made that phone call around your surgery, that was a little bit of a risky proposition because the court might think that that's not appropriate.
I guess. Yeah.
And you understood that, but it was important to do it at the time.
Yes, sir.
talked about an instance where she allowed you to talk to Deani on the phone. Were there instances where you made requests to see him in person and you were denied?
Yes,
And that was the messenger directly to you saying, no, you can't.
correct.
Is that why the efforts to do that have just stopped?
Yes, because I trust her. And she said that we weren't allowed to see him. I mean, what can I do? I can't make her. And I mean, I'm not that type. I just say, okay, the day will come, I'll get to see him again.
No more questions, Rich.
Any other questions, State?
Yes, Your Honor. Ma'am, counsel had previously mentioned on redirect bond conditions. Were you aware of the fact that Mr. Duenas has in fact violated those bond conditions?
No, sir.
You weren't aware of the fact that there's actually a conviction for a violation of bond conditions wherein your son contacted the complainant 15 times in one day?
I was aware of that situation. That was on New Year's, correct? Are we talking about the same?
No, this was only last year, a few months ago. So I guess my question is, you had, again, previously testified that you were aware that he kind of followed his conditions, but the state's kind of clarification question is, were you aware of the fact that, again, he has a conviction for a violation of those bond conditions wherein he called the complainant 15 times in one day?
Yes, to speak to his son.
So you were aware of that violation of bond conditions in that conviction?
I didn't know if it was a violation against him or not, but I was aware of the situation where he tried to reach Deani on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. I think something like that. Went in from New Year's Eve to New Year's Day. Yes, I am aware of that situation because Danessa called me. And that's why I was aware of that.
No further questions, Your Honor.
So, Ms. Duenas, this is one instant, one day out of the last 18 months, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what was particularly important or going on that day that David wanted to see his child or talk to him on the phone?
Again, we weren't in town. We were out of town when all this happened. So it was phone calls that I received. So when we got back and I spoke with David and I asked David, what was it? And he apologized. He said, I'm sorry, but I miss my son. And he broke down crying, fell to his knees. He said, all I wanted to do was wish my son Happy New Year. That's it. I didn't want to talk to her. I just wanted to talk to my son. And she would refuse. So that's why he called the 15 times and misses his son.
And that was the one and only date in the last 18 months where
Yes,
that occurred?
sir. After that, we asked him not to reach out no more, to leave her alone. He'll get to see his son when the time comes. And he said, okay, he was gonna leave her alone and he didn't call her back after that no more, didn't text her, anything. That was it. It was just New Year's Eve.
And he went back to jail for that, didn't he?
I think so. I'm not sure, sir. I can't remember.
That's okay. I'll ask you. As hard as that is and as hard as that was, does he now get that? That's just an absolute. He can't do that.
Yes. Yes. It was a hard-learned lesson, but he learned it.
And he didn't go to her house.
No, sir.
He didn't look for her anywhere she might be.
Correct.
It was strictly a phone call.
Yes, sir.
So I have.
Just a few more questions, Your Honor. Ma'am, are you agreed that the nature of the protective order was an agreed protective order?
Did my son agreed on it?
Correct.
No, sir.
So a lot of times if they're agreed, there's a knowledge there as to kind of what those conditions are. Are you aware of the fact that that order applies not only to the complainant, but also to Deani?
No, I wasn't aware of that until I was here Friday, or was it Friday when I was here?
And are you aware that your son signed that back in October of the year before this happened?
No, sir. I'll be honest with you, I'm the mom to all 6 kids. But I give them their space and what they do, if they don't tell me, I'm not in their business asking them. So no, I was not aware of it.
Do
And
you-
David didn't share that with me.
And I know that council had mentioned, David didn't go over there. But do you think it's appropriate to essentially violate a protective order 15 times in one day after you've agreed to the conditions therein?
I agree.
You agree, do you think
It,
that's fair or?
well, if he knew about it and everything, then yes, he's accountable. He shouldn't have reached out, but he misses his son. And I know that's not an excuse, but that was his way of just trying to reach out to his son. But I agree with you. Yes, it's a violation and mistakenly broke it. I mean, he's 26 years old and I'm not finding that as an excuse, but all this is new for him and he's learning. He's learning. I can stand and vouch for that. He's learning the difficult way, but he is learning.
And ma'am, you had mentioned the term mistake. Do you think it was a mistake to pick up the phone 15 times that day? Or what do you mean by mistake?
I mean that he knew better. He shouldn't have bothered her, is what I'm saying, yes. But what I'm trying to say is he's learning from those mistakes now. He's learned from them because he has not picked up the phone in over a year to call her and bother her.
And are you aware of the fact that not only is there a protective order, but there's also bond conditions after allegations occur? So there's multiple layers that would essentially prevent your son from making that contact. Are you aware of that?
No, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
That is further from this witness, Judge.
All right, thank you. You may step down. Defense, call your next witness.
Karina Levano.
Can you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, if you have a seat, make sure you keep your voice up so that members of the jury and the court reporter can hear. If you'll state your name for the record and spell it, please.
Karina Luevano, Karina, last name Luevano.
Defense?
Ms. Levano, how are you related to David?
I'm his fiance.
How long have you known him?
We'll be in a relationship for going on 3 years this summer. Before that, I'd say a year, so 4 years in total.
And so the two of you live together?
Yes.
Tell us who all is in your household.
My 2 biological children and our biological daughter. 3 children in total, myself and Solomon David.
How old are your kids?
My daughter, my oldest, she's 9 and my son is 8.
And the child that you share with David?
She's 1 year and 4 months.
What parental duties does David get involved in?
All of them. In the mornings, the kids have to be up early. We have school, I have work, I work from home. Before everything happened, he would be the one to walk them down to the bus because I was already clocked in at the time. He would wake them out of bed. That, alone was a hassle. And get them ready for school, take them to school, take them to the bus stop. From there, if I was out early enough, I'd be the one to pick them up, or he would be able to leave work, pick them up from home. Um, normal duties, morning, afternoon. Um, Before the incident, his schedule varied, so we didn't know exactly which days, he'd be out late or home at a decent time.
And so tell me about the finances in the house. Who's responsible for those?
David is the main breadwinner. I work as well, but I handled more of like groceries, I guess smaller charges, shopping, anything for the kids. And he, handled our car notes, insurance, rent.
So he handled household expenses.
Yes,
How is he as a stepfather to your kids?
great. He's the dad that they deserve.
Um, How do you see this going if David has to serve time in prison?
That's not something that we thought of happening. Um uh, Before the incident, we did, good together financially, and thank you. Um we do have a savings, something that would, help me out, but it would take a big toll on um technically, being a single mom again.
How did Deanna get along with your girls?
With my son and my daughter, I have one of each. He did really good. He being an only child with them, he had with so with his mom, her grandchildren, it's nothing but girls. Literally, he was the only boy. My son suffers from that on my mom's side. It's nothing but girls. I have little sisters that are around his age as well. So, always surrounded by girls. And so it was always fun. It was a lot of fun for him. He really enjoyed playing with my son. They're only a year apart. My daughter is used to her brother. So, we just had fun anytime. It was only every other weekend that we had him. So every time we had him, we, try to do our best to make it as fun, make memories. Go to the beach. We're really outdoorsy. Even now, we were always at, water parks. They got along really well. And to this day, my kids still ask when they'll be able to see him again. And we go to church, and, they have their own classes, and I'll ask them, what did they learn? And, we'll chit chat about that, and they always tell me who they pray for, and Dion is always on that list for them.
Now, obviously you and David have had a long time to think about everything that happened that night, right?
Yes.
Does David understand that some of the decisions he made that night and some of the judgments that he made brought us to where we are
Right.
today?
Yes. Both of us, when we look back at it, it just really got out of hand. And if we were ever in the position, anything near it, obviously, it'd be a way different outcome.
Had there ever been an incident where there was an exchange that, where there was acrimony or conflict the way there was this particular day?
No, no, never.
And how many times would you say that they were able to exchange the child without an incident before this occurred?
Honestly, more than I can remember. Me and Danessa would also exchange Diani as well if he was at work, you know, she wouldn't want her son stuck at work with him. So she would bring him to me, or if he was at home with me while he was at work, he would get picked up from me as well from the apartment.
So are we talking about like 1 year, 2 years that this was going on?
A year, yes, sir.
And this is the only time that things went sideways.
Yes, sir.
Now, David talked about an incident that happened in the apartment, and that's why he was carrying a gun. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Were you present when that happened?
yes,
Were you in the car with him when that person pulled a gun out of him?
yes.
Why didn't y'all just decide to move somewhere else or make some other changes?
Well, honestly, the apartments that we lived in were really expensive, even for me. We were literally right next door to Casablanca. That's just, not something that you expect. And moving was just, I wouldn't want to say dramatic, but because that is what you get away from, right? You pay so much rent to not experience things like that. And I honestly don't even feel that that person lived in the apartments. They looked kind of lost, obviously, if they weren't able to punch in the code themselves, like, what are you doing here? But right, so after that, he just got into the habit of carrying his gun.
Describe for the jury, if you can, David's emotional reaction to having to deal with not seeing his son.
It takes a big toll on him, on us. As a mom, I deal with my children's other parent as well. Not only their biological father, but their stepmom. And there's just not all other parents care for their partner's children as their own. But Diani was like mine. He was, oh, your other sibling's coming. No, Diani's coming over. He was a part of our family. He is a part of our family. There's nights that we have a picture in our house of our baby shower, printed in our dining room. And we look at it all the time when we're eating. And sometimes I think about taking it down because I've caught David looking at it. And I see how hurtful it is to not be able to see your son, a son that you saw every single day at one point because you were married to his mother, and going to, every other weekend, and then being practically banned from him takes a big toll on him and us. And there's nights where
Object to narrative at this point, Your Honor. Sustained.
Ms. Lozano,
yes,
are we done with seeing David get in trouble with the law?
of course, yes.
Now, there was an incident on New Year's Eve where he tried to contact Yanni, is that right?
Yes.
Which New Year's Eve are we talking about?
So this is 2024, 2023,
Okay, so
or
that,
2022 to 2023,
are we talking about a month ago or 13 months ago?
13 months ago.
And he got punished for that too, right? There's no chance that we're gonna have that problem anymore.
Right, no, sir.
You don't try to contact Vanessa, correct?
No.
Your mother-in-law doesn't try to contact her.
No. Well, not that I know of, no, sir.
And nobody that's in y'all's inner circle, family, everybody understands.
To
It just
stay
can't be done.
away, right, yes, sir.
Now, David's had to be on electronic monitoring since he's gotten out of jail, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how has that affected the family's scheduling and how your day-to-day lives?
We just had no choice but to accommodate. The mornings became, my duty. I get set breaks during work that I can adjust, so I do so. His curfew limited him to leaving. Well, it's been edited or updated. So at one point he wasn't able to take the kids to school at all. And then was able to. That helped with work. It was just work, home, work, home. If there was any doctor's appointments, hospital visits, it just solely relied on me.
Was he able to follow those rules?
Yes, yes, sir.
Did he communicate with the people in charge of him in order to stay in compliance?
Yes, yes,
And he's been doing that since September of 2022.
yes. Right, yes,
And you understand that if he's lucky enough to get probation, that the judge is going to impose probably even more rules on him.
yes, sir.
Is he up to it, in your opinion?
Of course, yes.
And does he have your support, whatever that takes, to make sure he's in compliance?
Of course, yes, sir.
I'll pass the next judge.
Great. Thank you, Judge. Just a few questions, Karina. You talk about how David got punished for violating the protective order. Were you aware that he spent 1 day in jail for that?
Yes,
And that was the punishment?
yes.
Now, there's been a lot of talk, I know you weren't in here for the trial, but there's been a lot of talk about an agreed protective order. Were you aware that that David signed an agreed protective order back in October of 2022, agreeing that he would not see Diani?
I knew about the protective order, but I didn't know that it was for Diani. I just knew that it was for the mother.
Okay.
His mom.
And were you aware that this protective order lasts until October of this year, 2024?
No.
Talking about what happened that night, if the situation were reversed and you'd been the one that had a gun fired at you and put you in fear for your life, thought that you were going to die that night, do you think it would be fair for somebody to be given probation?
It depends on the circumstances. Yes, ma'am.
Ask the witness.
Defense.
No further questions for this witness, Judge.
All right, you may step down. Defense, call your next witness.
Call Mr. Duenas, Judge.
Mr. Duenas. Right, can you raise your right hand? Oh, I'm sorry. You've previously been sworn in and you're still under oath. All right, just make sure you keep your voice up so that the members of the jury and the court reporter can hear.
Mr. Duenas. Thank you, Judge. Mr. Duenas, you understand the jury's verdict, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you understand that it's now the time for them to impose whatever punishment they think is appropriate, correct?
Sir.
So I want to talk about what's been happening since September of 2022. First of all, when this happened, what were you doing for work?
I was at the car dealership, Dodge on San Pedro,
How long had you been there?
since I was 18.
And just so that the jury has a sense of it, were you a salaried employee? Did you work on the hour? How did you get paid?
Started as a salary and then worked my way up to sales manager, and it was a percentage off the entire sales we had for the month.
So in September of 2022, well, let's talk about 2022 in total. What did you make in 2022?
Uh, that was the shortage, so cars were limited, so it was like the highest uh month, well, highest year for everybody in car sales. So like about 150,000.
And how many children do you have?
Uh, I have three that biologically mine, but I mean I race a total of five,
So you consider Karina's kids your kids as well.
of course.
So tell the jury what your child support obligation is on a monthly basis.
I pay for my daughter, and the divorce paper I started paying for my son after we had split up. Uh, like $800, $900.
And what about Deani?
Well, that's combined. I mean, his is half.
Okay, okay. And have you tried to continue to do that even since you had all of this going on?
I was making it. It got a little tough whenever I got arrested. We had just got bought out by new owners, so we were in the process of rebuilding the dealership. I mean, this owner, I knew him for 10 years, and then he sold it, blindsided me, and had new ownership management. So we were in the rebuild process. So once they found out well, my daughter was gonna be born that week, so they thought I was on maternity leave. But once they found out the truth, the new HR and the new management they brought in had to let me go.
So you went from making $150,000 down to what?
Just past year, I barely made 20,000.
And what are you doing? What are you doing for it now?
Um, uh, I'm helping my dad part time. You know, he has a business, but I just help when he asks me. I was selling cars a few months ago, but I was supposed to get promoted into finance, and they were supposed to send me to school in Dallas. Um, but I kept having to come to court, and I had requested to be able to leave so I could go to school, and I was denied leaving 75 miles out of San Antonio. So the job had to move forward with somebody else, and fortunately, they had told me they had let me go.
So they were actually gonna promote you at your job.
Yes, to make more money.
And it was mandatory that you attend this training in Dallas.
Yes, F&I school, because you have to learn everything on the vehicle warranties.
Okay. And because of your restrictions of your monitor, you couldn't go.
Yeah, they just kept putting it off because they were opening a dealership next door, a new Jeep store. So they kept saying they're gonna open soon. We'll put it off. We'll put it off, and just wasn't able to make it.
So how long did they keep you after you had that monitor installed and you were under pretrial conditions?
So lost my job as soon as I got out of jail. Started working with them right after. So a year.
Now, did any other opportunities open up or become available to you since you stopped working at the dealership?
Yeah, they some mutual man. So I followed the owner. When I got fired from that place, I followed the owner because he had another store. So that's where the opportunity came up for finance. But once they let me go there, some of the managers that I worked with through the years found out, and they know I'm a good salesman. So they started asking me if I wanted to go work for them, and went to maybe like four different dealerships. And as soon as they pulled my background, they told me they couldn't move forward.
So even though these people knew you and they knew your work and they wanted you to work with them, they're not gonna let you do it based on this case.
They had people all the way up to the GM speak for me that it would work, and corporate was a lot of corporate were saying no, that it's not because they didn't want me there. They just were scared if I went to prison, then they wasted an opportunity when they could have had somebody else.
Um, and so your work has kind of been on hold since recently.
Yes, my old recruiter from high school texts me every year if I still interested in going in the military. Um, because I had a really good ASVAB score. So, but I had put that on hold because I had my son Diani, and ended up not going. But I realized, maybe if I do get this dismissed, maybe I can, go to the military and get my life together for my family. But um, yeah, I mean that's not gonna happen now.
So you understand that that opportunity is now no longer available.
Yeah, it's not available.
Um, Now, we're talking about that side of it, David, but do you understand that there was things that you did, decisions you made back in September of 2022 that kind of got you here, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, do you accept that?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that you don't have anybody to blame for you having that gun out there other than yourself?
Absolutely.
Um,
Can't blame nobody but myself.
And so do you accept the jury's verdict?
Yeah, can't can't be upset at them. Can't be upset at nobody but myself. I mean, uh, I've been going to church since I got out of jail. Um, uh, Pastor actually preached a couple weeks ago and made me like. He was talking about in the Bible how one of the disciples had to go to prison, and he asked God why, and he literally said that he had nobody to blame but himself, that he would still keep preaching the word in prison. And I told my fiance, I told the pastor that it was in God's hands, and no matter what, I wouldn't blame anybody but myself. I wouldn't blame God. I'd keep moving forward and pass the word to whoever I can while I'm in there. Or if I'm not out, I'd still be believing in God that it's in His hands. I mean, I don't have any hate towards anybody or in this world. Like I said that night, decisions were made, and it's costing me right now.
But nevertheless, you made an application for probation, is that correct?
Yes.
You're asking this jury to give you probation.
If they feel that they could give it to me, I mean, I'd be grateful. I mean, it's not me that it's I'm in this position because of me, but whatever they choose, I mean, like I said, it affects my children's lives. Like I said, I'm everything to them, and uh, this past year, they see my ankle monitor, and every time I come to court and I go home, my oldest are always, "Did you get your bracelet off? Can we go somewhere now?" And I tell them no, not yet. And um, not only has my life been put on hold, but I feel like they suffered enough. They want to go to the movies, they want to go to this, but I have to be home by 8 o'clock. Hey, when are you gonna take us to school? Can we go to the park? Can't leave till 8. School's at 7. Like, hey, we're going to the beach for spring break, like summer vacation. They're used to that because I'm in their lives like that. I tell my manager I need time off, take my kids off. He understands because I'm there for my kids. So I feel like they suffered. I mean, my daughter's first birthday, I wasn't allowed to leave anywhere, so couldn't even have a party for her. We had a party at the house, a little cake, and it's your firstborn. Not to mention, I was in jail when she was born, so I wasn't there to hold her when she was born. So I mean, it's taking a toll on all of us, and I'm just trying to move forward and be there for them. But I mean, it's like I said, it's me that I put myself in this position. So I mean, whatever they choose, I understand.
I mean, we need to talk about New Year's Eve, not this one past one, but one before, right? Um, you tried to make telephone contact with your son.
Um, it was a little puzzled. I mean, a lot of people were celebrating New Year's. Um, I unfortunately had to work. Um, so my family was out of town, and my fiance's family lives in Mexico. So I didn't want to stop them from having their fun with her family, her mom, and obviously my kids were suffering just being at home due to my house arrest. So I wanted them to have freedom to go pop
Next
fireworks.
non-responsive at this point, Your Honor.
All right, that'll be overruled.
So finish telling us about New Year's Eve.
So I felt like they could have a vacation to go to Mexico, just get out of here for a few hours with their family and got home, I was by myself, and I started to think like, you know, I put myself in this position, so I celebrated, you know, how everybody does start drinking, and don't recall the conversation. I just remember she answered the first time, and I apologized that I wanted to talk to him. I hadn't seen him. I apologized to her. I remember her accepting my apology, but she said that they were moving on, and that I couldn't talk to him, and that she was gonna call the police if I called again. She was giving me a warning, and I should have listened, but I didn't. Just wanted to hear his voice to make sure he was okay.
So you knew at the time that the rules did not allow you to do that, correct?
Sure.
But you were by yourself, it's New Year's Eve, the emotions just got to be too much. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I bought him Christmas gifts, everything. I even sent a few gifts to his house, and I mean, I just wanted to hear, if he got his gifts, and I just wanted to hear from him like that he was okay, because there's times when we weren't together before all this. It wasn't my weekend. He might have had a nightmare. She would call me and say, "Hey, he's having a nightmare," or "Hey, he misses you. Can you just, talk to him?" And I would be on the phone with him. It could be at work. It could be when she picked him up from school. Like, just if he missed me, like she would allow me, "Hey, he's calling. He wants to." So I was used to that. And I hadn't heard from him, so it just was like I needed to know if he's okay. I don't have social media, so I couldn't, find any pictures of him. I don't have social media, so it wasn't allowing me to, giving me that peace.
What did you take that to mean? Or what did it mean to you? When she said we're moving on.
Um, I mean, like, I, I, what happened, I guess it did something to her. So it meant like she was just gonna be focused on her and him. Um, so it means like probably out the picture, I won't see him again.
Now, David, do you understand that the judge is gonna put conditions on probation if you're lucky enough to get that? And it could be any number of things, whether it's classes that she thinks you need to take, community service, reporting, drug testing, all those kinds of things. Are you ready and prepared for all of that?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, have to put my family first, my kids. So that'll always be first. I mean, she can put a lot of obstacles for me. I mean, I will do whatever it takes to overcome all them and do better. I mean, there's no doubt that I don't have any doubts that I couldn't complete what I need to be able to move forward from here.
Now, do you also understand, David, that whatever sentence you get, if you violate probation, that in fact, that's the next step, that you would actually have to serve that time in prison?
Yes, sir.
And are you worried that you're not gonna be able to do that?
No, sir. I don't think it'd be an issue. I mean, there's a few car salesmen that I've known that have been in situations where they have messed up and gone on probation or gone to prison, and they've told me, they gave me advice like, hey, whatever happens, do it for your family. And I've had that emotional support through friends, and they never said, I was a bad person, but I mean, people make mistakes, and if if they could do it, I could do it. So, I mean, and especially that I have a backbone. I have my fiance, I have my kids, behind me, so I can't let them down.
Now, you told us that you apologized to Vanessa. You think Christian is doing an apology as well?
Yeah, I mean, when he came in here and sat, I looked at him. I don't remember his face. Like I said, I never knew him. I didn't feel nothing towards him. Like I said, that night could have been prevented. I don't know the man to even say I like him, or just like I don't know anything about him. And I'm not the type of person that hates someone or dislikes someone from the moment I meet him, like, because you don't know anybody. I mean, even if you know friends with him for a few months, you don't get to stop knowing somebody. So for me, it's like I would apologize to him, and like I said, I have nothing towards him, you know, at all.
That's the witness, Judge.
State.
Just a few questions. So Mr. Duenas, you talked a lot about how this whole, situation, it was affecting your children's lives, but wouldn't it be more fair to say that your decision that night is what has led to affecting your children's lives? Your
Yeah.
choice to go down with the gun, your choice to start this chain of events, that's what's affecting your children's lives.
You see a lot of stories, you see a lot of stuff on the TV, self-defense, it's your right. Fortunately,
Duenas, I'm asking a yes or no question.
then yeah, I mean, yeah, I made my decision.
Um, now you mentioned on direct with Mr. Martinez that when you violated the or the bond conditions and called Danessa, you knew the rules and you broke them. Are you now claiming that you knew you weren't supposed to be talking to Diani as well? Or are you just talking about how you just knew you weren't supposed to talk to Danessa?
I was just told I wasn't supposed to. So I had two protective orders. It said Christian and her signed, but they never once told me I couldn't see him or communicate him. They just told me that her mother uh would be the point of contact for me to pick him up or see him if Danessa was okay with it. But that's all they told me.
And you stated the other day that you had received an email copy of these, correct?
No, I got him the first day, but once we overlooked him, it doesn't say anything about him until the end, where it says applicants, her, and then him.
So
But
you never read the protective order before?
I read the top and the bottom, but like I said, the lady was going through it to me, and she didn't state that it was him. She just said that I couldn't have contact with her, so in order for me to see him would be through her mother or my mom if she chose.
And in those 18 months, you never thought to look into why you were being prevented from seeing Diani? Never thought to ask a lawyer or anything like that?
Well, no, we're all under the assumption that I was allowed to see him, but if it was her choice, that's what the lady told me, if it was her choice.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Defense.
Just to clear up that last matter, Mr. Duane, did you have a lawyer representing you at that hearing?
No, they were trying to serve me with paperwork. They kept going to my old apartment and they kept calling Danessa. They couldn't, if they knew where they knew where I was at, which I thought was, hard, like not hard because I had an ankle monitor and I was only restricted at my mom's house. So I didn't know how could they couldn't find me. So he served me the paperwork and said that I would have to be on Zoom on like a Tuesday or Wednesday. So like I said, I went on the Zoom. It was just a room. There was no cord. It was just one person talking to me and said that there was a protective order filed, that I had no communication with Danessa or Christian. That's it. She didn't say my son. She didn't say anything. The only reason that we got into it is because she said, "Do you have any children with her?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "You have custody?" I said, "Yes, we have joint custody. Pay child support?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Okay." I'm sorry. She said, joint custody. I said, "Yes." And she said, um, the only way I can see him communicate is if she was okay with it, but it had to be through her mom or my mom. That's how they told me.
So you didn't see Deanna because you couldn't contact the mother to make those
Uh,
arrangements?
well, the mother had passed away like a month later. Her mom passed away a month later. Um, so I wasn't able to communicate with her, but my mom was communicating with her and asking for him. She said no, so my mom would respect that. My mom went to her mom's funeral, um, but like I said, it was up to her, and my mom didn't want to like keep pressuring her, and I mean, like I said, I got that violation, so I just didn't want to disturb anymore and have to go turn myself in again and pay any more fines.
No further questions, Judge.
Just a few, Your Honor. Do you know if Christian has any children or any family members?
I don't know anything about him.
Okay, so not knowing anything about him is how would have affected his family and his potential children if you had not missed and had shot Christian that night?
If I had, if I had heard him, I'm a man of my word. I would have not had gone this far. I would have, pled guilty. Like I said, I mean, I wasn't trying to hurt him. So, like I said, if I were to hurt him that night, I mean, y'all saw the video. I didn't run off. The officer told me to wait.
Okay.
I stayed in my apartment, complied.
How would you feel if that night instead things were reversed and Danessa had the gun, she had fired a shot at Karina? Would you think that Danessa would have deserved probation?
I mean, if it was reversed, I mean, I believe in second opportunities, second chances.
Pass the witness.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, you may step down. Defense, call your next witness.
Rest, Judge.
State.
Rest and close, Your Honor.
Yes, do you call us?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna give you all a short break. And then we'll come back with closing arguments. Is everyone okay to hear closing arguments? All right, so I'll bring you all back in at 6:20. All right, everyone, please rise. If you all can review those and let me know if you have any objections.
Very expensive.
All right, each side, 10 minutes for closing.
He's gonna go on the stand for one question. One question. You should tell him.
Yeah, no, on Twisted Wisdom. And he has it. But see, it's because I put the order in the morning. like usually.
I thought it was gonna go in the hallway.
And then.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, to left, but yeah.
See, I just do it when I'm run out of something that I need. Like I'm having ham right now and I eat a little ham and Swiss tomatoes in the morning and it's like.
I can
I gotta go.
pick it up for you. They're both out there
No,
right now.
my friend who was with me is going to HB, so I already sent her. I was
There you
like,
go.
please pick up my meds and some ham.
Oh my gosh. I'm in trial, I can't believe that. HP closes at like this, right?
My gosh, the boys are gonna keep saying, so Hunter has like this cake from HEB, and he likes to do the honey bun.
Oh, nice, yeah.
He's got all kinds of little HEB swag, so he's got a super good. And he found one on my shelf. And he put it on Charlie, like, and. So he starts running around the store, and was like, no, not that one, that one's empty. But it's pretty cute. I think
That
it's
is cute.
So that's what they did. Sucks when it's raining. I love that age though, like everything excites them, they have so much fun.
The games is cool.
Last night, the little boy that I watched, he's 9, got mad at me because I wouldn't give him ramen after he ate a lot of pizza. And then he went to bed crying because I wouldn't give him ramen. How dare you? send
How
him out
dare you
there?
starve him?
Hello,
I know,
Bear
and I was
County.
texting
That takes for you.
I was texting my mom, I was like, you had 3 slices of pizza, is that enough? Like, do I need to feed him? And she's like, he's fine. And in the morning, he went up, and he's like, already like, I was like, I don't know what I said. And he's like, rolling his eyes at me, like, oh my God. I'm like, can you be
That's
that
a
for like
lovely
1
age.
minute? Oops. I'm like, we're really crying over ramen noodles.
Well-
He eats them like every day.
I would say that's not even the weirdest thing I've heard somebody cooking.
Right?
We are in closing, we're gonna put them up for one question,
Oh.
and then we'll close.
That's it? Yep. He started. He's not doing that. But like, the exception of it, that's extremely.
What's the saying? I've still judged.
Go on the records. Have both parties had a chance to review the punishment charge state,
Yes, Your Honor.
defense,
Which one?
any objections state,
No, Your Honor.
any objections to this?
No, you're on.
All right, defense, it's the court's understanding that you wish to reopen.
Yes, Judge, I have a critical question I was supposed to ask and I did.
All right, so, Mr. Duenas, if you'll take the stand.
Oh.
That's how, that's the only way he's eligible for probation. Yeah.
Well, except there's been a data. It's the mother of all breaches, including LinkedIn, Twitter, X, all of this.
Don't have it, don't have it. I have Facebook.
Oh, that's been breach probably. But
All right, for the jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may ask your question. You're still under oath.
David, have you ever been convicted of a felony?
No, sir.
No further questions.
State.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to read to you the charge of the court on punishment. Again, you don't have to memorize it. A copy will be given to you. Charge of the court on punishment, members of the jury. By your verdict returned in this case, you have found the defendant, David Solomon Duenas, guilty of the offense of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon as alleged in count 2 of the indictment. It is necessary that the jury assess the punishment for this offense. You are instructed that the punishment for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon is confinement in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Institutional Division for any term of not more than 20 years or less than 2 years. Therefore, you will assess the punishment of the defendant for any term of not more than 20 years or less than 2 years. In addition to imprisonment, an individual found guilty of the offense of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon may be punished by a fine not to exceed $10,000. And if you choose to assess a fine in addition to imprisonment, you will assess such fine and so state in your verdict. If you assess a fine, it is not paid to the victim or victims, if any, but it is paid into the registry of the court. The defendant in this case has applied on written sworn motion for community supervision, stating, among other things, that he has never been convicted of a felony in this or any other state. Our statutes provide that where a defendant is found guilty of the offense of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and the jury assesses the punishment at not more than 10 years, and they further find that the defendant has never been convicted of a felony in this or any other state, the jury may, within its discretion, recommend community supervision during the good behavior of the defendant. If the jury does recommend community supervision, it will be granted by the court. If there is any evidence before you that the defendant may have committed an act of misconduct other than that for which you have convicted him, you are instructed that this evidence, if any, was admitted to assist you, if it does, in determining what sentence is appropriate in the case at hand. You may consider that evidence in assessing punishment only if you first believe beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed such other act of misconduct, if any. In the event you have a reasonable doubt as to whether any other such act of misconduct was committed, or as to whether the defendant was involved in such other act of misconduct, if any, then you will wholly disregard the evidence, if any, which may relate to any such matter. In your deliberations, you may consider evidence introduced during the guilt phase of the trial, as well as any evidence introduced at the punishment phase of the trial. Under the instructions herein given, it will not be proper for you in determining the penalty to be assessed to be fixed the same by lot, chance, any system of averages, or any other method than by a full, fair, and free exercise of the opinion of the individual jurors under the evidence admitted before you. The length of time for which a defendant is in prison may be reduced by the award of parole. Under the law applicable in this case, if the defendant is sentenced to a term of imprisonment, the defendant will not become eligible for parole until the actual time served equals 1/2 of the sentence imposed. If the defendant is sentenced to a term of less than 4 years, the defendant must serve at least 2 years before the defendant is eligible for parole. Eligibility for parole does not guarantee that parole will be granted. It cannot accurately be predicted how the parole law might be applied to this defendant if sentenced to a term of imprisonment, because the application of that law will depend on decisions made by parole authorities. You may consider the existence of the parole law. You are not to consider the manner in which the parole law may be applied to this particular defendant. A suitable form is attached hereto for your verdict if you should care to use the same. However, such form is not intended to influence you in any way in arriving at your verdict. In any event, your verdict must be unanimous in writing and signed by your presiding juror. Respectfully submitted, Judge Stephanie Boyd, 187th District Court, Bexar County, Texas, and suitable forms are attached. State, are you prepared to present argument?
Yes, Your Honor, we will reserve though.
All right, defense.
Thank you, Judge. May it please the court, counsel. So ladies and gentlemen, let me just, again, some technical things to know. In order for a person to be eligible for probation, the sentence has to be 10 years or less. Right? So obviously, we're asking for 10 years or less. Now, how does that number factor into how this punishment plays out? If you gave a person, let's just say an 8-year sentence, and you recommend to the court that he be granted probation, the judge is going to do that. But it also means that if there is a violation of probation, that person is going to go to prison for those same 8 years, or at least up to that, because that's the sentence that you imposed. So many people will tell you, and I often hear prosecutors argue that probation is just a pass. It's not a pass. It's like you're walking into the prison and you're halfway there if you're on probation, right? And if you don't toe the line, you'll just get yourself closer and closer. And if you really want to, that's where you're going to wind up. So I would caution you to never think that probation is a pass. There's a reason why the legislature set up the statutes the way they are in terms of the range of punishment, 2 to 20, because you guys didn't know what this case was going to be about before it happened. There are some aggravated assaults with deadly weapons that merit 20 years in prison. All of us can envision that. And there's some that merit 2. We are happy to accept the number that you think that it merits based on what you heard and the decision you made in this case. We're just asked that you do it at 10 years or less so that the probation becomes a possibility. In analyzing, what is appropriate to give him? He's never been convicted of a felon. He's never really been in trouble. He had a really good job, taking care of his family, doing all the right things. But what was happening that day? Let's talk about what was happening that day. He was having a typical Sunday on his visitation weekend, right? As little kids sometimes get tired or they get fussy, his mother, hey, Yanni's, kind of wanting to go home. Are you available for us to bring him back to you? No, I'm not. Okay, fine. He checks with her later. Hey, I'm on the way home. He's been asking about you. I can drop him off. All of this is going to wait. She wasn't available. That's fine. She was within her rights to have her time to herself. No quarrel. Nobody's putting any blame on her. But what was David's thought process that day? It was all about his child's needs, right? How he was feeling. How can we best accommodate him? And what was his thinking when she came there at 9:45 or whatever time it was? After he's heard her cussing at him and they start getting cross with each other. Look, it's late. You guys have been out. He's already been asleep. He's got to be up at 6. You're in a car that doesn't even have a car seat to take him home. Just leave him. Could he have handled that differently? Obviously, by your decision, you feel like he could have. He could have said, I'm not going to let you take him. I'm going to go inside the house. You want to call the police? Call the police. I'm not going to let you take him. And just walk away from her, right? In retrospect, none of this was necessary, obviously. None of this had to happen. But what was he doing that day? He wasn't out for a fight with her. He didn't have any reason to even be cross with her. It got there through a series of events that were very unfortunate and have cost him dearly. This series of events has changed the trajectory of his life forever. Whether you give him 10 years probation or 4, he's going to be a convicted felon, right? 25 years of age, he's a sales manager making $150,000 a year. We all wish our kids were doing that well. It's gone. It's never coming back. People who know he can do work are not going to give it to him. The military, they were seeking him out because he had performed so well in his test. They're going to stop calling. They're all going to stop calling. And you know what the worst punishment is for a person in his situation? It's not to make him suffer or not to lock him up or to punish him. It's to punish what's most important to him, his children. And they're being punished. And they've been punished. There's going to come a day when they're going to know what that little black thing on his leg is and why he had it on his leg. And when they come to that realization, do you know how disheartening and how little David's going to feel that they now know dad was on that thing because of something he did that was wrong, right? All those times that he can't take them to the park, they can't go to the movies, they can't go to the beach because dad can't leave the house. They don't understand why now. A day's going to come when they do understand that. Gianni's going to get old enough where he's going to know it wasn't that my dad didn't want to see me anymore. He couldn't because of something that he did that he will be forever apologizing for and will never make up for. all of us who have children understand that sometimes, the hustle and bustle of life gets in the way of all the things you want to do for them, but you do the best that you can. And you always feel like you didn't do enough. But we didn't get in this situation. Can you imagine the explaining, the guilt, the shame that's going to be with him forever? And that's the decision y'all made, and that's fine. We accept that. But all we're asking is for a chance for him to redeem himself. We're not asking you to give him a pass. We're not asking that all the punishment just pretend like it doesn't apply to David Duenas. Sure it does. And you're going to punish him with a number of years that you think is appropriate. And this court is in charge of deciding if in fact he's towing the line or not. And trust me, we do this every day. If the judge feels it's time for him to get more severe punishment, then she will do that. And y'all don't have to even worry that that will happen. So I'm not asking that you let it go or that you pretend it didn't happen or that somehow he was justified. None of those things. Punishment is merited and you're going to mete it out and we're going to accept it. End of discussion. But let the punishment fit the circumstances of this case, right? Could something of worse have happened that day? Of course. But thank God it didn't. And thank God everybody is okay and everybody's moved on. You know how we know that him not having time with his child is the worst punishment ever? Because that's the one that Duenas is meeting out. That's her saying, I know what's important to you. You know you're not going to see him. We're done with you. Right? Maybe there'll come a day where she too can forgive. I don't know. But he has to just take it. He knows that. And it is what it is. So we're asking on his behalf, I'm pleading with you on his behalf to find some mercy and look at some of the good things he's done over the years. Look at how he's performed on pretrial services. Never once violated that monitor device in 18 months. Yes, on New Year's Eve, 13 months ago, it had only been a few months, he hadn't seen his son. This happened in September of 22. In December of 22, he told his family, you guys enjoy New Year's. I can't go anywhere. I'm on this thing. And he must have had some alcohol in the house. And we all know what that led to. I just want to talk to him. Can I just talk to him? Right? And the answer was a resounding no. And not only that, we're going to take you back to jail. Let's see if we can get through to you this time. Well, they got through to him that time. Since December of 2022, he's told the line, and he will, for as long as he has to, and as long as you think he needs to. The fine is a non-issue. I appreciate y'all's patience and indulging me in my arguments, and I ask that you give him a just and right punishment. Thank you.
State.
Thank you, Judge. Please, the court and counsel. The defendant said, I knew I was a good salesman. He talked about people he had worked with before. And we've seen a lot of evidence of that over the past several days. He's a good salesman. He tries to spin a story. He tries to sell you. And that's what he's done to you. He's tried to tell a story and spin it in a way that always benefits him. He's still trying to do that. And it's time for you to tell him that no, we know that you're only accepting blame now that we have held you responsible. We know because you said on the stand, oh, I wanted this case dismissed. Of course you did. He didn't want to take responsibility until y'all told him, no, sir, you are responsible for this. Don't let him still try to get away from it. Now, you'll see on the jury charge, the punishment sheet. This is much more straightforward than our last one. What I recommend you do first is decide the time, because whether you assess probation or time in jail or in prison, you need to assess the time first. Now, as we said, the range is anywhere from 2 to 20. I'm not going to be dramatic and say this deserves 20 years. We all know that worse things could have happened, and thank God they didn't. But I also don't think that this is a 2-year case. I would recommend start in the middle at 10 years and ask yourself, is there anything about what he's done, what he's said, or just the facts of the case that make me think he deserves less? Is there anything that makes me think he deserves more? And make your decision that way. And then only if it's under 10 years or 10 years or less will you decide, hey, he deserves probation or not. Personally, I don't think that I would want somebody out in the community who thinks that it's appropriate to grab a gun, confront somebody over some nonsense, start banging and yelling and threatening, and try to fire, and then try to avoid all responsibility for it until the jury finds him guilty. There, but for the grace of God, Christian is alive, and Christian has nothing more than a bum knee. Think about also what he went through, the fear he suffered that night, and how this has most likely affected Deani. Everybody talks about how David's affected because he can't see Deani. How do you imagine that little boy feels not being able to see his dad because of what his dad did that night? David is not the victim here. Christian is, and so are all the collateral around him. It's time to hold him accountable. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to send you back and you can begin your deliberations. And if the alternates, there'll be a separate place for you to wait. All right, everyone, please rise. Everyone can be seated. All right, so by the sound that's in the hallway, it appears that we probably have a verdict.
Yeah.
So there is not to be any outbursts in the courtroom.
Zach's running down the stairs. He went to get a snack.
We're ready.
Ready?
Yes.
All right, for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Deputy Laura has informed me that you've reached a verdict on punishment. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it unanimous?
Yes.
All right. If you'll hand the form to the deputy, please. All right. It states, we assess this punishment at confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for a term of 2 years. There's to be no fine. And it states we have not assessed a fine and we recommend that the term of confinement we have assessed be suspended and the defendant be placed on community supervision. You may be seated. Does anyone wish to poll the jury?
No, Your Honor.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let the deputy take you back to the jury room and I will be back there shortly to speak with you, okay? All right, everyone, please rise. All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, so this is what's going to end up happening, Mr. Duenas. The jury has made their determination that they're offering you probation. You're going to need to report back here tomorrow at 9 a.m., not 9:01, not 9:02, 9 a.m. Probation is going to be here at that time. And if both parties are waiving PSI, I'll impose conditions at that time. Are parties waiving PSI?
We waive PSI, Judge. I'm just thinking about.
All right, and my understanding is that you're still on GPS, is that correct? All right, you're gonna remain on GPS at least until tomorrow. And we will be back here tomorrow and I'll impose sentence. All right. Is there anything else from either side?
No, Your Honor.
All right, and Ms. Ferguson, if you'll make sure they have a reset form.